the early parts of chapter 6 last week, where Sister Lisa did a wonderful job executing that lesson, right? And then we picked it back up in Bible study, and we were talking about thriving. In other words, they were thriving because they were surviving. Even though they were in a bad circumstance, they were still thriving because they preserved their lives, right? And so here, we are going to be talking about Gideon, who, what we find here is Gideon is threshing wheat in a wine press. He's threshing wheat in a wine press. That should spark our attention because it was customary to thresh wheat on a threshing floor in an open field or an open space where wind would come through. Because what they would do is they would thresh wheat, meaning that wheat, it comes in, the grain of the wheat comes encased in like a shell. And what they needed to do was thresh that hard shell. Basically what they were doing was removing the shell in order to get to the grain. Are you with me? And so what would happen is after they would thresh, a wind would come through and the wind would carry off the thing that is no longer needed, the chaff. Are you with me? And so here, what Gideon is doing, instead of threshing it in the normal way, he had to thresh it in the wine press. Are you with me? Why, you may ask, is because Midian had invaded Israel. And they invaded Israel as a punishment. They were used as a tool of God to invoke punishment on the Israelites because they had been disobedient. So what we find here is, and they have been attacking and oppressing Israel for 7 years. So what we find here is, we find here that Israel has been in a season of consequence. Okay? In a season of consequence. And this season of consequence lasted for 7 years. Have you ever been in a season where it just feels like you just get your butt whipped for a long time? And the thing about it is, it was something that they had done wrong. It was their fault that they were in this season. And so they're in a season of consequence, and the Midianites are basically being a depot. They're coming into their land, and they're taking what they want. They work for it. They're helping themselves to all of the things that Israel has. Have you ever experienced that? Where it feels like the enemy comes in and helps himself to your stuff? Or maybe it's not the enemy. Maybe it's a relative or a person. You ever experienced somebody where they come in, don't ask you, not just going to grab your stuff? I remember, I'm going to try not to name any names. I remember when I still smoked cigarettes. And at the time I was married. And my kids were small. And there was a particular girl on the hilltop that a lot of people was afraid of. A lot of people. And so what she would do is, she was intimidating. She was very intimidating. So one day she came and walked in my house, and I had a pack of Newports for all those people that used to smoke Newports. I had a pack of Newports on the table. I was sitting there. My ex-husband at the time, or my husband at the time was sitting there. And she walked up. She picked my pack of cigarettes up. She got what she wanted. She lit it, and she walked out my house. They're talking about a depot. And guess what? I ain't say nothing. Because not only was I scared of her, my husband at the time was scared of her. And so there's times in our life where we will experience people that will come into our life and help themselves to our stuff. Yeah. You ever had that friend that came over to your house and got some of your clothes without asking you? My mother used to hate when I would share clothes with friends. My mom didn't believe in that sharing clothes. Not because she was stingy. It was because she believed that you would catch diseases from sharing clothes with people. You know, y'all sharing clothes. You know, you wear my stuff, I wear your stuff. But there are times in our lives where people come into our lives and they take from us. They They take from us in families. They take from us in relationships. They take from us on our job. They take. In other words, they bully us out of our things. Are you with me? And so that's the season that they're finding themselves. They're finding themselves, if you will, in a bullying season, a season of consequence, something that they brought on to themselves. And so, again, they would just come in, and anytime that Israel was sow in the land, and then the harvest time would come, and it would be time for them to reap the harvest. And how many of us know that when harvest times come, that's a time of blessing? That was a time of blessing, a time where they should be gathering in the things that they have sown. You ever heard of the term reaping what you sow? Meaning that they put the seed in the ground, and then after so many months, there should be a harvest. And so when they would try to go harvest their things, or after they had harvested their things, the Midianites would just come in and help themselves to that. Isn't that something? Where you didn't work hard for the things that you got, when somebody just comes on in and robs you.
Right.
Because that's basically what they're doing, is robbing. You ever had somebody break in your house while you're at work?
Yeah.
Just helping themselves. Helping themselves to your big screen TVs. Helping yourself to what's that where you used to have this, the stereo. Helping themselves to your purse. Helping themselves, just helping themselves, or making their way around your house, going through your drawers, taking what they didn't pay for, taking everything that they didn't work for. Just helping themselves. And so what we see here is Gideon. We see here Gideon taking the wheat that he was able to secure, and instead of threshing it in the normal, traditional way, he used, here's that word, we've been talking about thriving, we've been talking about blooming where you are. He used wisdom and said, you know what? I may not be able to stop them from taking everything, all at once. I may not be able to stop them from coming and trying to take things, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure this amount of wheat, and instead of going to where I normally thresh it, I'm going to use wisdom, and I'm going to come up with a strategy. And what Gideon is doing is Gideon is trying to survive this season of conflict. He's trying to survive a Debo season. And so he decides, I'm going to take the wheat, and I'm going to go over here to by the wine press, and I'm going to thresh my wheat there. I may not have all the tools that I need because I'm not in the threshing floor. I'm not in the traditional place, but I'm going to use what I got. How many of us have to need to learn how to use what we got in a scarcity situation? Because can't we say scarcity? Because if the enemy is coming in there and they're robbing them, that means you ain't left with much.
Right.
But Gideon understood something that we need to understand. Even though you may not have much, protect what you do got. Protect the little bit that you got. And what he did is, instead of threshing in the traditional way, he chose to thresh in a wine press. And it's interesting, and it's important for us to understand that Midian, this wasn't a one and done thing that they did. This is something that they repeatedly did. And it's over a course of 7 years. And so Gideon is experiencing a season of scarcity, a season of shortage, a season where he's experiencing lack and poverty. He is poverty-stricken, but yet he uses wisdom, and he comes up with a strategy to preserve what little he has. We can learn something here. Can you learn to preserve what little you have? Most of the time what happens is when we're left with little, or we only have a little bit, we're complaining. But we need to learn how to preserve the little that we have. And so in order to protect his little, he uses wisdom by choosing to thresh his wheat in a non-traditional place. And so he uses a wine press. And a wine press was a pit where wine was made. That's where you would take the grapes, and it was a place of crushing. It was a place of pressure. So he used a place that was used for something else, but he used that place to get done what he needed to get done. Far too often, when we can't do it in one setting, we give up. But some of us, what we need to understand is you have to learn how to make do out of what you need to make do of. Have you ever had to make do?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he threshes the wheat by a wine place, a place that is hidden, a place that is enclosed, a place that is not meant for threshing. It's a place of pressing and where pressure is applied. So in this instance, the place that he's in a place that represents pressure. He's in a place that represents crushing. And sometimes while we're trying to preserve the little that we have, it may come with some pressure. It may come with some crushing, right? But we still need to use wisdom and do what we got to do until we can do something else. And so again, threshing normally happens on a hilltop where, on a big hill where the wind can blow away the shaft is in. So then he chooses not to do it that way in order to preserve what he has. But not only that, when we think about wheat is a basic food source. So again, if he allowed them to continue to come in and rip the food source from them, how many of us know that you need food to stay alive? So his life is depending on this. And many of us, our lives is depending on the little that we have. And so instead of complaining about the little that we have, why don't we protect the little that we have? Why don't we preserve the little that we have? And also, why don't we be thankful for the little that we have? But it requires for us to do our part. Gideon didn't sit there and just let this happen. He did the best that he can do in the situation that he found himself in. And so the question that I ask us today as a congregation, are we doing the best that we can in the situation that we find ourselves in? Are we doing the best? Or are we just sitting somewhere, wasting away, waiting to see if somebody else is going to do something? Sometimes the somebody is us. Are you with me? And so the wheat is a basic source of food. It provides nourishment, and also it symbolizes a harvest season. Again, the harvest has come in. And when you hear harvest season, that's a season of blessing. But here the harvest is coming in, but the enemy is coming in and robbing you of that season. So really what it is showing us that you can be in between two seasons. You can be matched between two seasons. You could be in the best of the season and the worst of the season. Because the harvest is coming in. Ain't nothing wrong with the ground. Ain't nothing wrong with the seed. The problem is the enemy. Are you with me? Yeah. And so he doesn't get to enjoy this harvest because he is being robbed. Israel is being robbed. In other words, Debo is coming in and he is taking whatever he wants. And instead of Israel enjoying the benefit or the harvest, the enemy is enjoying what they had worked so hard for. And so, as we see here, Gideon is threshing wheat in a non-traditional place in order to preserve it. He is enduring a very hard season. He's enduring a Debo season. He's enduring a season of consequence. And just like him, there's times in our life where we have made some poor decisions, and we may find ourselves in a scarcity type season. We may find ourselves where the enemy is coming in and it's ravishing our lives. It's ravishing our finances. It's ravishing at our resources. It's ravishing. It's taking what it wants. But just like Gideon, we need to have some wisdom and figure out, how can I preserve, even if it's a small portion. But what I like about this is, even though they made poor choices, even though they made poor decisions, God's mercy and grace is still layered all through here, because he sent the angel of the Lord to talk to Gideon. And basically what he is calling Gideon to do is he is calling him to deliver Israel out of the hands of Midian. And so what this tells us is, we might have to endure a season of consequence. But one thing is for sure, God won't leave us there. He won't allow the enemy just to ruin our lives for the rest of it. He won't allow the enemy just to ruin us for the rest of our lives. He's going to step in and he's going to provide a way to be delivered out of that. And so he has chosen Gideon to be the very one, the one who is in the experience, the one who has experienced it in that season, along with the rest of the Israelites. He's calling him to be the deliverer that he is going to use to deliver Israel out of that season. Aren't you glad that we serve a God like that? Yes. Aren't you glad that even though we mess up and we make poor decisions, aren't you glad that he's not going to allow the enemy to take your stuff forever? Aren't you glad he's not going to allow the enemy to have your resources forever? What does the songwriter say? The songwriter says, trouble don't last what? Always. God is coming through. He's coming to deliver us from all that the enemy is wreaking havoc in our lives. That's the God that we serve. We serve Jesus. You know, the one who went to the cross of Calvary, not only for me, but for you. The one who bled, suffered, and died. The one who was buried in a borrowed tomb. I'm talking about the one who rose on the third day morning with all power in his hand. And he's not done there. He ascended to heaven. But guess what? One day, he's coming back